Okay, so today we're going to now install our clutch brake pedal bracket that we removed in our previous video. We got our bracket back, and here's the finished product from the shop that we took it to. And you can see they added a bunch of extra metal to it and painted it for us. It's nice and beefy, and hopefully she lasts a long time and doesn't crack again. So I'm going to try and insert it this way up underneath, and then rotate it around on top, and then place it up against the firewall. Things to consider: the brake master, like the rod that goes to the brake master cylinder, has to go in through this hole, and the clutch master cylinder, the rod that goes there, has to go through this hole. So I managed to get the bracket up over the steering wheel. We have, for this section, 4 nuts that go on studs that protrude from the brake master cylinder. And we got 1 bolt down here. Then there's 2 more that go up in the top that I'll point out. All those nuts and bolts are 12 millimeters. So we managed to get the studs somewhat through the holes. So now I'm going to cinch them down with these 12 millimeter bolts that came off the clutch master cylinder. And you want these nuts pretty snug. Okay, so this assembly here that we had moved out of the way so we could access the clutch master cylinder, we're now going to move this back, again being careful of the vacuum lines. There's the 3 holes that the 10 millimeter bolts go in. So there's 1 on this side, 1 right down there, and on the other side right there, there's 1. So now what I'm going to do is reattach these relays to the steering wheel, like so. So now what we're going to do is lift the steering wheel back up now after we've zip tied these guys back on, and we're going to put it on these studs, and then put the bolts on to hold the steering wheel back up, and then cinch them all down. So right here, this bracket has to slip on top of this lip that you can see right there. So I'm going to have to bring the column towards me, up, and then back and seat it onto that clip before cinching down the bolts. There we go. There's my other bolt, and these are the bolts that go up. They're size 14 millimeter. These clips down here, there's 2 black ones, 1 blue one. I can now just slide those back in. Next thing I'm going to do is replace this guard. That's a 14 millimeter. Now what I'm going to do is put in the top bolts for the bracket. So the first one is up here, and they are 12mm bolts. And this is just above the clutch pedal here. And the next hole is just above the brake pedal up here for the bracket. And again, 12mm, these little short bolts. And there she is, nice and tight. So now what I'm gonna do is start connecting my sensors back up and installing them. So the first one I see here is, this is the brake pedal micro switch, this black button right here. And on the back, there's a little clip, which is still in position. So I'm just gonna reattach that clip on the back of it. So this right here is the sensor micro switch, and I left the nut roughly in the same position that it was when I took it out. So I'm just gonna set it to that same distance. It looks a lot clearer on the threads of where it used to sit. So I'm just gonna set it to there. So once you get the sensor in the hole, you want to be able to slide on the rod for the master cylinder. And now you can hold the clutch pedal down and set the sensor to roughly where it used to be. And then right here is the wire at the back. And there she goes and clicks into place. And the size for that locking nut on the top end sensor here for the clutch is 14mm. So the parts that I took off from the clutch pedal was just this pin and this cotter pin. So now what I'm going to do is attach it in the same way that I had taken it off. And there she's through. Now I'm going to take my cotter pin. There's the hole. And then slide it right through. Now what I'm going to do is replace the brake pedal. So I'm going to take this, slide this bolt out here, but keep this sleeve inside that it's on. So I'm going to loop that up over the steering wheel. So now we can connect the brake pedal back to the rod that goes to the brake master cylinder. And the three components are, again, a cotter pin, a pin, but this one has a spring. So what I'm going to do is take the pin, move the pedal to where I need it to fit through the hole, and then take my cotter pin, drive it through the hole. So up here, there's a little hook. You can put the spring in that side, and then it comes around the pin that you just installed on the brake pedal there. So now I can start continuing to connect up wiring harnesses. There's this plug right here that fits onto this relay. That just slides right in there. The next sensor that we can install is the bottom clutch sensor. So that just comes right up behind here, behind this bracket way over here. And there's that locking nut. There's two nuts on it actually. And what you can do is back off this nut. You slide your sensor back up around the left and then sandwich this bracket right here between the two nuts. So this micro switch here, I believe, is the start cancel clutch switch. And some issues that we were running into before actually was we would put the clutch pedal all the way to the floor, and it's still, this little pad right here wouldn't even push down on that micro switch. So what I'm going to do now is I've already adjusted the backing nut on it, on the other side of this bracket, to bring the switch forward more. And now I'm just going to tighten down the locking nut here on the front. And as you can see, when I push down the clutch pedal, it pushes on that micro switch. So I'm going to grab my 14mm crescent wrench, tighten down this front nut. That way she's nice and snug in place. Perfect. So the next thing I'm going to install is this black box here. It plugged into this clip here. There's this black box right here. And it was just positioned up like this. Now I'm going to replace this piece of insulation around the steering wheel column there. And that just came up here, tucked behind the carpet. And there were these hooks behind it. It rested just like that. So now I can just place back on the key cover. It's just got these two pop tabs on it. Now I'm going to replace the seat back in. So what I've done is, since these guys are super rusty, as you can see, I went to the hardware store and they didn't have any stainless bolts in the same size, but I found stainless washers, and I decided to just build my own version of this to replace the rusty bolts that were in here. Eventually I want to clean all this up, maybe even remove these and make new brackets. One of the last things to do is install the driver footwell duct. So I'm gonna place it inside that side there and then pop it up onto its duct on the right hand side here. There she be. Alright, so the last thing we're gonna do is put back on the driver footwell cover. So this right here on this side is the hood latch, and this side is the fuel door. So it slides on like so. And then on the underside, we have our screws that go in. So this little guy on the end of the cable there slides into that hole in the back of the this latch, and then that allows you to pull on it. There's 4 Phillips head screws.